Hello guys, U899 here and welcome to today's video where we'll be presenting some bold predictions. Blackout edition. This video was recorded a few days prior, but I didn't like how the audio sounds, so I wanted to record it again. Then a massive storm hit New South Wales on Wednesday. We lost power. We technically still don't have power. We've got a power generator, so we're somewhat okay. But yeah, taken a few days to actually get this around, so hopefully this video will be out tonight. So yeah, in terms of a disclaimer of how this video will go, I have a bold prediction for every team in the NRL, and it could be about different aspects of like where the team will finish, specific players doing something, all along those. And finally, just a little bit of a warning, there are some of these some people will not like. And that's the beautiful thing about this. It is purely just my opinion. And let's be honest, just because I have a YouTube channel and like, you know, look, equipment, does that really make my opinion worth more than the average NRL fan? Yes, so let's go into it. The Brisbane Broncos. Michael Maguire wins Coach of the Year. Brisbane are obviously looking to rebuild after last year, when they obviously kind of fell off a little bit. Has been a bit of a tumultuous pre-season because of the issues with Ezra Mann, but I feel like Michael Maguire coming in is going to, you know, just weed out all the bollocks, and I think really put this Broncos side on the right track. And I feel like if they do end up making the finals, even hosting like a home final this year, I think it'll be pretty obvious that Michael Maguire should get Coach of the Year. I feel like the only person that could really take it off him is Wayne Bennett, depending on how South Sydney go this year. The Canberra Raiders will revert to old logo at some point. Genuinely, this is like probably the hardest team to try to think of a bold prediction for, because in terms of all of like the news and like talking points during the off season about clubs, Canberra was like one of the quietest. Like, I do think they'll go alright. Like, I think they'll fight for the finals. I don't think they'll actually make it, but you know, they'll still be in that, you know, big battle to try to cling on to finals places. But one thing that would be nice to see is they get rid of that touch footy logo. I feel like genuinely if Canberra fans galvanised and actually took it as a front to the club saying, can you please change it, they could buckle under the pressure. You never know. Also, can things just stop going for these minimalistic like redesigns, because I just think they look bad. Canterbury Bulldogs finish top 4. Ooh, this is going to be an interesting one. Obviously, the Bulldogs had a pretty galvanising run last year. They ended up making the finals for the first time in quite a while. They had their crowd with their bandwagon going along really well, because everyone was like, oh, the year of the Bulldog and stuff like that. Because, oh, 2004, 2024, get it? 2 decade, or math. And about making grand finals now, because obviously they made a grand final in 2014. And it was really good, but unfortunately, in the elimination final against Manly, in a very good match, they just came up short. Some would say controversial, but it's hard to say. But I generally feel like the Bulldogs are definitely on the right track to keep on going, and I feel like this is where we start seeing them definitely in the conversation of potential premiership winners. So I think this year they'll finish top 4, because I think some teams from like who finished above them are going to drop off a little bit. So yeah, the Cronulla Sharks, Nicho Hynes wins Dally M. Nicho Hynes did get a lot of flack last season, whether it was regards to about how the Sharks were performing and sometimes it were a little bit just passing enough to be good, but just not enough to be great. Then there was obviously State of Origin Game 1, where a lot of people pointed to him as being the reason like New South Wales lost that game as one of the big ones. Unfortunately, I mean, they still played with 12 men for 70 minutes, so I feel like this year, the Sharks got over the hump of actually winning a finals match in 2024, defeating the Cowboys in the semi-final. But I just think that now, the Sharks will need to... But I think now, the Sharks, like the Dogs, are going to push themselves as actually being genuine title contenders. They've made some decent signings this year, and I just feel like it'll all come down to Nicho Hynes. Like, I don't think he has to worry about representative football, so he can purely focus on Cronulla. I think the Sharks will go really well this year, and I feel like he will be the main component of it, to the point where I think he will win the Dally M. The Dolphins clinch finals on final round. Now, the Dolphins were 1 game away from making the finals last year. Unfortunately, they had to play Newcastle in Newcastle, and the Knights decided to clutch up for some reason. And a lot of people, since Wayne Bennett left the Dolphins to join back with South Sydney, people just think the Dolphins are just going to completely capitulate. Some people have them like bottom 4, and I think that's kind of a little bit disrespectful. I think they've got a pretty solid team. They've added a veteran presence in their forward pack in Daniel Saifidi, and I think to the point, because my predictions to me, it's going to be like one of the closest years we've ever seen. I think the Dolphins will be able to clinch into their first ever finals on the final round. So, yeah, Dolphins make the finals. Fight me. The Gold Coast Titans. Alafinha Khan-Pereira ties/breaks club record for most tries in a game. Just fairly safe to say, Alafinha Khan-Pereira, absolute gun. Genuinely, bit of a consensus. Could possibly play for Queensland at some point. I don't know, but something like that. But yeah, generally he is an absolutely fantastic player, and I feel like if this is the type of... And I feel like he is the type of player to actually either set or break the record. But yeah, I generally think a player with his talent, just given the ball, he'll score. And I reckon one of these matches could be someone like a club on the decline. Don't know who. But he'll just end up scoring the tries to either tie the record or break it. And I think he's very much talented to do so this season. The Manly Sea Eagles. Ruben Garrick breaks club record for points in a game record. Now, Ruben Garrick has actually tied this record twice. I believe it's 30 points or 32 points, which is held by 4 other instances, with him being twice, as previously mentioned. But I generally feel like this will probably be the year that Garrick just absolutely goes ham on one team and obviously does the kicking, and he will break the record. Interesting to see how Manly will go this year, because I think, kind of like in Canberra, Manly been like the most quiet, so kind of hard to get a read on them and how they will go this year. But yeah, I think Ruben Garrick should be able to break that record. The Melbourne Storm. Jerome Hughes wins Clive Churchill Medal. Essentially, this kind of gives away of who I think is going to win the premiership this year, but there you go. I mean, Jerome Hughes won the Dally M, deservedly so, last year, making it 2 New Zealanders in a row winning deserved Dally M's. Yeah, fight me on that one. But yeah, I just think that the Storm going into 2025, I think, are the favourites. I wouldn't be surprised if the grand final this year is the Melbourne Storm and Penrith again, but I feel like the Storm will actually do one better. And I believe Jerome Hughes is going to be a key component in that. And I think he will win the Clive Churchill Medal as the Melbourne Storm lift up the premiership on the first Sunday of October. The New Zealand Warriors. Dallin Watene-Zelezniak breaks club record for tries in a season. He already holds a Dallin Watene-Zelezniak. He's an absolute beast. And I think he's going to break it, because I think he's going to be a very key component for the Warriors if they want to bounce back from their bit of a lull of last season. It'll be interesting to see how the Warriors do go this year, because it's a bit rough to try to figure out what's going to happen. Obviously, you have Anthony Blake, who just left for Cronulla. Obviously, as well, you just had the retirements of Sean Johnson. And of course, right on the eve of the 2025 season, Tohu Harris retiring. So, going to be interesting to see how the Warriors do go this year, but I feel like if they were to do something this year, Dallin Watene-Zelezniak is going to be a very, very important component. The Newcastle Knights. Adam O'Brien sacked before August. Out of all the coaches in the NRL, Adam O'Brien is probably the one with the most pressure on him. And I've said that a few times so far, but obviously the Knights last season fluked their way into the top 8, and then, in fairness, did a pretty good effort to take it to the Cowboys, who eventually ended up winning. I just think, depending on how the Knights start this year, I think the axe might fall on Adam O'Brien, and I'm calling that if the Knights start off horribly, he'll get sacked before August. And if the news is somewhat true about Fletcher Sharp being converted into a playmaker, I really hope it happens sooner than later. The North Queensland Cowboys come 9th. Like I said earlier, I genuinely think this year is going to be one of the hardest years to predict teams, as well as, like, you know, that gap between like 7th and like 11th where there's all these teams really close trying to cling on to points. That's going to extend. I think it's going to be incredibly close. And I think the Cowboys are just going to dip a bit. Like, you've had a fair amount of talent leave the club. You had Valentine Holmes leaving, Kyle Felt left, and also Chad Townsend's now gone to the Roosters. I do think they've got some decent talent. I just think that they're going to just fall off a little bit from the experience that they have lost. And I feel like they're going to just miss the finals. The Parramatta Eels. Wooden spoon. Now, my expertise for this is essentially which team's fan base would be the most angry. So there you go. I mean, Parramatta obviously got a rookie coach and have had a few players leave, but they have brought in players like, Zach Lomax. But apparently Dylan Brown's now being shopped out. And I just feel like there's just not going to be enough attacking power. Also, Marcus Sevo leaving, the player they scapegoated all of last year, even though he was like one of the only reasons they were at any point good. In terms of discussion of who could get the spoon, I think it's like Parramatta, even Newcastle to an extent. Who else? Maybe the Tigers again. That'd be really weird. I doubt it'll happen, but just along those teams. And I just think Parramatta, at this point in time, is the most likely to get the spoon. Also, fuck Hardies. The Penrith Panthers will not make the grand final. Like I said last year when I made this bold predictions video for 2024, it is very hard to try to make a bold prediction for Penrith. It's like, oh, they don't win. Oh, guess what? They win. And they've done it 4 times in a row. But the bridge has to collapse at some point. And I'm calling it for it this season. I think they'll make the prelim final, but I just think some team is going to beat them. Could be someone like, I don't know, maybe the Storm at home. That could be a consensus of something that happens. So, there you go. South Sydney miss out on finals. I genuinely don't understand why this is a bold prediction. And here's the thing, I like South Sydney. I like their players. I like their fan base. But for some reason, you tell them they're not making the finals, they get really angry. All they've really done is brought in Wayne Bennett, like this old bloke. Now, granted, they brought in Lewis Dodd as well, who I think is going to be a very exciting talent, but I just think I haven't done enough, and I've also lost a considerable amount of talent in the off-season, and like I said last year, when it's good, it's great for South Sydney. When it's bad, it's terrifying. And obviously they had an absolute terrifying season last year with the amount of bad luck that went their way. But I just think that they will improve this year, but I don't think they'll make the top 8. Maybe next year. Next year? Alright, fair enough. But this year, cannot pull the gun on that yet. The St. George Illawarra Dragons makes finals. Now, it's very interesting to see how the Dragons will go this year. They've got a bunch of new players, but they did also lose a couple. They lost Zach Lomax to Parramatta, which is a big loss. But the Dragons have brought in the Warren Valentine Holmes, they've brought in Clinton Gutherson, and they've brought in Damien Cook. That is a saucy spine. Very much so a saucy spine. Then they're going to say centers under part of the spine. I don't give a shit. But basically, yeah, I think the Dragons, they've definitely improved in the last couple of years. And I feel like, obviously they did also lose Ben Hunt. Just remembered that one. But I think that they'll better themselves under this new veteran core that they've just brought in, and I think that they will come into the finals for the first time in probably a while. So yeah, I think the Dragons will make the finals. The Sydney Roosters, Mark Nawaqanitawase wins Rookie of the Year. The Roosters lost a lot of players in the off-season and essentially are starting a bit of a rebuild, which does pay dividends in the future because 2016 they kind of dropped off a bit and didn't go so well, but then they rebuilt themselves up into premiership winning back-to-back titles. So, and I feel like one of the key components of this new core coming in for the Roosters is going to be Mark Nawaqanitawase. He's only played 1 game of rugby league so far for first grade, which was the final round against the South Sydney Rabbitohs. So he should be eligible, but then again, I don't know how it works. I think it's generally the biggest grey area when it comes to awards, but I think regularly start, he should very much at least be shortlisted and probably should win. And finally, the West Tigers, Jerome Luai makes Team of the Year. This is a big season for Jerome Luai. Obviously, this is his first time away from Penrith, and he is now the leader of the West Tigers, who are looking to prevent a 4th straight wooden spoon. And they've got some decent looking players coming in for 2025. It's generally an exciting time for the Tigers. And I feel like if the Tigers were to improve themselves, I generally think getting themselves out of the bottom 4 would be a huge success after the last couple of years on and off the field. And I feel like Jerome Luai is going to be the key component in that, to the point where I think there is an argument to be made he could get in as the halfback for the Team of the Year at the end of the season, which is going to be pretty hard, but I reckon there is a possibility he could do it. And that right there is the end of my bold predictions for the 2025 NRL season. What predictions do you have for this season? Let me know in the comments below. Just remember as well, if you are angry at any of them and you go off at me in the comments, there is a statistical likelihood they are now more likely to happen. So, be careful. Anyways, that's me. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you all later.